show on the road. The last part of the drive where everybody asks, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? What's my PowerPoint say now? Nothing. My PowerPoints are terrible now. Maybe they've always been. Who knows? I gotta just always send you guys something, because otherwise I won't do my job. All of the emails. Save-O-Rama. We had a break. Then we had another break. Then we had another break. Whatever. It's almost 12:30. Good enough. Then we'll put this again. That's all we did today. I won't save that yet. I don't like that. Ba-do. Before I do anything. Oh, I gotta save the participant list. There's like thousands of things I have to do every time I teach. To remember it all just takes practice. Routines. Save this, save that. Download this, download the videos, blah, blah, blah. Talking to myself. I save it for the last week's stuff. And then boom, we get started. All right. So, what are we doing? Human rights. Education is a human right. Okay. And I don't know if you've listened to writing from yesterday, but we started to mention about these Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs for short. Let me fix something before we start moving forward again. I like to upload the videos for you guys on YouTube. It's mainly for me, since nobody watches the videos anyways on YouTube. Nothing, yes, just nobody watches anything anymore. I can tell when people watch, it's interesting. What is this unit called? Education Studies. Overcoming Inequalities. Isn't that the real thing? Does anybody study education? Oh, the education. Most of your universities are now bought by the bookmakers. I didn't realize how much of a problem this is here at the prep schools. And if somebody's listening out there spying on me, I will probably get fired for this, but your schools are just now money makers for book companies, That's why we have to use these books. I would rather not. I would rather make my own all of these things. Say them. How did you learn to read as a child? Did you face any challenges when you learned to read? All right, so one of the biggest things, talk about reading, okay, is you become a better reader when your parents read to you as a child. When you're young and your parents open that book and read you a story at night, that starts this idea of what it means to share stories, to learn information, to be able to read on your own, okay? It's probably the one biggest, strongest indicators for strong reading skills, okay? And a lot of it isn't like you learned how to read because your mother taught you to read. No, it's kind of the motivation, the idea. There's like just a pleasant idea of feeling when someone reads to you. You enjoy it, therefore you will enjoy reading in the future. So Always think about that when you someday have children and you want to read to them. Read a book. Read for yourself, read for your children, read for your future, whatever that future means, with or without. But read, and it kind of connects you to people and places. So what am I reading right now? A book called The City of a Thousand Gates, it's a fictional book with some historical events about Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, told through many stories of many different people whose lives intersect in this book. It's quite good, but quite challenging because there's so many characters. And that's how you start to understand, have empathy for other people, and start to make connections with your own life, the lives of other people around you. It's through fiction, not through nonfiction, through fiction. Okay, so read books. This is why we're in this reading class. Find another book. After you finish your extensive reading, find another book on actively learn. Okay, there's so many you can choose from. There's a lot of great ones too. And just keep reading. This is like your opportunity, right? You don't have many assignments in this class. They didn't design any assignments for reading except for 2 small things. So I would always ask you guys to continue to read. Just find a book. When you feel bored, don't turn on Netflix. I watched maybe 1 episode on Netflix this week. I don't watch anything, and I like it. Other than Ted Lasso, that's on Apple TV. That's more like a project than just lazy watching. Because that's how the system makes you guys not care, makes you not want to learn, because everything now is so passive. You just sit, you press the button, and then everything gets recommended for you. You really have no choices if you let the algorithm figure everything out for you. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about one of the SDGs, SDG 4. It sounds like a disease, I know. Let's call it Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, sustainable, something we can do. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's something that will last for a long time. Development to improve, to increase the capacity of things. And it's a goal for 2030. Okay, are we going to reach that goal? No, never. This will be like a 3,000-year goal. It'll last longer than our current civilization. And maybe we won't even need zero hunger, because we won't have food. We'll just eat it from the pipes, tubes. Maybe we won't even have gender equality, because we won't even have gender. We'll just all be workers. But yeah, this one is about quality education. Okay, one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Probably my number 1 goal for life, for my job, for my livelihood. They often talk about pandemics still here. They just found out in America that the reading scores of children affected by COVID has basically made children go backwards in their learning ability. The things that we did to prevent a disease, not all of them worked out well. Okay? And in hindsight, I hope we learned from that last event that closing down schools does not help. There were very few COVID outbreaks in schools when schools did reopen. There was like almost no outbreaks caused in school because they were careful when they opened them, right? We learned about social distancing, quarantining, all of those things. So there was not any kind of outbreaks. I mean, the ones you heard on the news, yeah, sure, that's something that happened. but those things also happened in people's houses, in parties, at restaurants, or whatever, at a barbecue. um, it's just a statistic. It's normal. If you don't look at schools and you look at the general population, what happened at schools was insignificant. It wasn't worse. Okay. But yeah, every time we close down a school, every time we ban a book, every time we shut down libraries, every time we cut off of arts and being able to go to concerts, classical music, all of that is just kind of, it's making it so that Netflix is the only possibility that you have after a while. And maybe there should be a Netflix just for students, like Sesame Street. I don't know if you know Sesame Street. That's probably one of the biggest things in America that was created publicly to help black children. And if you watch early episodes of Sesame Street, like Big Bird, right? I didn't know this till this year when I listened to a podcast about Sesame Street. There's a good one. It's called Through Line. I'm going to send it to you guys. Maybe one of you will listen to it. Through Line, Sesame Street. Great podcast episode about this. Getting to Sesame Street. Oof. Okay. And you can see, these are the characters, right? And they actually made the neighborhood look like a neighborhood in Harlem, New York. Okay. Because they wanted black children who were not getting a proper education because of the government disparities in school funding and rich neighborhoods versus poor neighborhoods. They wanted those children to have an education. And they watched it on TV and they did learn. TV is not like poisonous, okay? It's only the moment that advertisers started using TV to attract children to buying toys and sweet cereals and food. So in the past in America, you couldn't make a commercial that was aimed towards children. It was illegal. And then the corporations got in there and said, nope, we're going to make a TV show where we sell all the toys at the stores, but the TV show is going to have the toys that the children want. And so then that started happening. And before that, so TV was about education, about news, some entertainment, but usually, for adults, comedy things. But this is a really great episode if you guys are into that. But yeah, if you ever look at any images of Sesame Street, always something from the past. Always like diversity, okay? And it was trying to show that, there's people out there that look like you. The teachers, the actors, a lot of times were African American, okay? And that was a goal to improve education, and it worked. And it worked for everybody. It actually improved education not just for black children. It improved education for all children who watched those shows. So we have a history of using TV to improve people's education to children. Okay? And it's possible. Just the algorithm has to be set up to teach people. Entrenching inequalities in education have only worsened during the pandemic. Still very focused on the pandemic on this website. Remote learning is offered to 3 million Ukrainian children in the chaos of war. Now we're getting into the topic of war, right? So any disasters, here in Turkey, right, as well. So I get it. I get it. People have been going through a hard thing, but I think the thing that I learned in Japan was the moment that you cut off education, you say it's not necessary to go to school because you've been through a lot. It de-incentivizes learning. It de-incentivizes people getting back to normal. It doesn't help. It doesn't promote mental health or psychological health in any way. What it ends up doing is making people feel isolated and disconnected from the world. So one of the most important things in Japan that I learned, what the schools there did, was they reopened as quickly as they could, if they could, and they still had people families living in the gymnasium, in the auditoriums, But classes were still happening, and it wasn't like we're forcing children to learn because children want to learn. People want to learn. Some people. So yeah, another rant from Teacher Bob. What does this one have to say? What does this website say about education? It's probably better. This one's better, of course. Let's put those back in the garbage. Let's dispose of those. Sesame Street. It's talking about reading. Oh, I hate these websites that don't. Oh, because there's no information. Whatever. What about the other one? Come on. Give me the preview. There you go. Nope. No, it's fine. What is it called? Go for it. Go for it, guys. All right, skimming by reading topic sentences. Okay, so here's again why it's important to write good topic sentences. So I know what I'm going to read. Okay, in academic writing, the topic sentence, the first sentence of a paragraph. Some of you guys put questions in the beginning. That's good for the introduction. Try not to do that for body paragraphs. Body paragraphs are really straight. You know, they're like your worker ants. They do all the grunt work. Just they're there for one purpose. That purpose isn't to like excite you or to draw you in. That's where the information gets given to the reader in an effective, clear, efficient way. Okay? I don't need to read 20 sentences when you could write 5 sentences and it has the same meaning but better, right? Because less is more. I have to remember that as a teacher. I would like to do less from now on. And not to say that I want to be lazy, just that if I could, you guys would be doing most of the work in the class, but that's not a routine. That's not something you're used to yet. So your education system hasn't prepared you to do much in the classroom, just to sit and listen. In academic writing, the topic sentence, the first sentence of a paragraph often gives the main idea of the paragraph. Often, should always, okay, for you. Reading the topic sentence of a paragraph, and especially the key word in it. What is the key word? That's going to be your main idea, okay? That is synonymous. That is equal. That is a synonym. That's what synonymous means. Synonymous. Synonymous. Synonym. Same. Sin. Especially the key word in it. That's not in a good place. Little arrow. How do you draw a little arrow? In it will help you get the gist of each paragraph in a text. Okay, that gist, is like the overall idea. If you don't do that for me, I get lost. I'm a stupid reader, remember? Okay, so let's go through this. This is the Autobiography of Malcolm X, not to be confused with Malcolm Gladwell. What was his real name? But an interesting man who changed quite often, actually. I mean, at the end of the day, he was assassinated, killed by somebody. Nobody knows who killed him to this day. But he joined the what is it called? The Nation of Islam in America. So he became a Muslim. So a lot of African Americans in the 60s were embracing Islam. Kind of one as a way to say, we're not part of this country anymore. We don't believe in your Christian values. But also that there was, this beauty that they found in the culture and the religions of Islam. But he kind of went against his leaders, the people that supported him. The Nation of Islam. Farrakhan was the name of the guy. That's his last name. That's not... what am I doing? That's not the topic sentence. let's look at the title first, right? Autobiography of Malcolm X. Who wrote this? Who wrote this book? We don't even see a title, right? But when we see the word auto and biography, what do we see? Who wrote this book? What was his real name? I always forget. He's not going to tell us here. He changed his name, right? It's an autobiography, right? So self, bio, life, graph, writing, graphy, writings of autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm X was one of the leaders of the African American communities in the 1960s. He had different ideology, similar beliefs, practice than Martin Luther King Jr. They were both, civil rights leaders, but both had different approaches. One was nonviolent, and the other believed that it was only through strength and not violence, but kind of attacking the system, basically, in some way. Okay, here's the first topic sentence. It had really begun back in the Charleston prison when Bimby first made me envy his great knowledge. Okay, so if this isn't like academic writing, right? This is more autobiography. It's not like he's going to use I because he's writing about himself and his life, right? But if this was also a story about his life, well, what do we know now? If we're reading a story, if you're doing this whole plot, like task A, okay, where does this happen? Who is involved? And then what's kind of this thing, the plot, the MacGuffin in a noir movie, the thing that moves the story along. So we know where it happens, right? This is the location, the Charleston prison. Okay, do you imagine your story starting in a prison? And if it did, would it stop you from making a story? I hope not. I hope that everybody has a chance afterwards. Second chances, third chances, redemption. Okay? I say this is the location. That's not going to work. Anyways. We have a character that's not him. This person named Bimby. We don't know who he is yet. But we know that he has great knowledge, right? Cool. Topic sentence. I think we're going to find out about the prison. I think we might find out about Bimby. I think we might find out about what this great knowledge he has is, right? Cool. When I read that, I know what to anticipate. And because I know what I'm going to anticipate, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not going to be confused if they start talking about Martians attacking. Okay? Send them to Mars. I like that comment from yesterday. I saw that the best thing I could do was get hold of a dictionary. Study. Okay? To get hold of something. To get a hold. Right? To hold something. To get hold of something. To acquire. Right? I'm going to say this is probably our biggest. Would anybody read a dictionary for fun? But if that was the only book that you had in the library or in your world, would you still read it? I hope so. The next one's not really much of a sometimes, right? Then you would do push-ups and sit-ups and get strong as well. This one's just a one-sentencer, right? And that's fine because this is not an academic essay. It's an autobiography. So this is just one idea. It's probably going to move the story along. But I'm going to still consider this an important sentence because it's the only sentence, right? I can't say the same on your essays, though, if you do an introduction with one sentence. It means that your topic is not important to explain it. In my slow and terrible handwriting, I copied into my notebook. So now we're talking about writing. Everything printed on that page, down to the punctuation marks, okay? A lot of you guys still have issues with punctuation, which is fine. But a lot of you, the majority of you actually, have improved, have gotten rid of those little punctuation issues. Okay, so when you're writing, even on a Padlet, practice good grammar, formatting, punctuation. Okay, don't get lazy. Is it okay when you text your friend to not put all those things, all the punctuations? I see that people don't do this. Sorry, work related. I believe it took me a day. Then aloud, I read back to myself everything I'd written. Okay, so this moves the story along. There's still this idea of the notebook, right? He read, so now he went from writing. So he went from writing to reading. Okay, so I don't know the entire story because I didn't read it. But now we're talking about this notebook. I woke up the next morning thinking about those words, very proud to realize that not only had I written so much at one time, but I'd written words I never knew were in the world. That's a cool thing, right? What a cool thing to find something and not discover it, because it's always been there, but to find it for the first time for yourself, this new word. And it's not just a word, right? Words are not just 5 characters, WORDS, right? I'm going to say these are what we call ideas, right? Every word in the dictionary contains with it an infinite amount of variation ideas. Okay? It's like 26 letters in the English alphabet are the DNA, the building blocks, the periodic, the elements of the universe. And with those 26 letters and spaces and those punctuation marks that you guys love so much, you can create meaning, ideas, meaning, right? I really hate. I'm gonna get a drawing pad. Why don't I do something like that? I could turn my iPad into one. Moreover, with a little effort, I could also remember what... Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to read that. I was so fascinated that I went on. I copied the dictionary's next page and the same experience. Sorry, no. So the next. He's fascinated, right? Talking about the feeling. He's feeling. He copied the dictionary. Nice. These are longer paragraphs, so we know there's more information that we're missing. But it also means they're similar. Right? I suppose it was inevitable. We talked about this word, I think, yesterday. Inevitable, something that's going to happen. It is. No, we talked about today. It is inevitable that you're going to get old. But not weak, okay? Like I said, like I show the world. Don't ever get weak as you get old. I suppose it was inevitable that I learned more and more words. I could for the first time pick up a book. See how he uses the comma there? It's not good grammar, but it's interesting writing sometimes. Okay, so don't do this in your own thing. There should be a period, right? There's a subject and a subject, or the better thing he could have done is put a semicolon, right? That little semicolon, that's the better thing. So, not good grammar. Sorry, Malcolm X. I'm going to be a teacher today. Not good grammar. You're an English teacher. I'd be crying right now if he read this sentence. It's called a run-on sentence. I could, for the first time, pick up a book and read and now begin to understand what the book was saying. Where did this man learn how to read? Who gave him this knowledge? What gave him this knowledge, right? What are the words? He puts envy. I would put all the characters as well. I'm going to put dictionary for 2. There's probably another one, if you guys can help me. So it's not just one brain doing all the work. 3. Is there really 7? I don't want to do this. It's going to show the answers. Copied. What? Get hold of a dictionary. That's not a keyword. Copied, read back, think, right? Thinking about those words. Fascinated, begin to understand. Book. I guess the verbs, right? Big verbs. Verbs are important. Copied. More and more. I could now begin to understand. So yeah, he goes from what? Envy of knowledge, right? Somebody has knowledge, he's envious of it. He gets hold of a dictionary, right? He starts writing. Write down. What did they say here? Copied. Whatever. I guess that's the main verb here. I copied. Read. I read back to myself. Written in the notebook. What did they say? Read back. Cool. So they're really focused, I guess, on the verbs as the things. Thinking more, realize that I've written so much. Written, I think is the word that they put. Thinking about the words, never mind. Thinking about the words. I guess what they're doing is the first major one. Fascinated, right? And then here, this is a adjective, okay? But you can also think of it as a passive voice. I fascinate somebody. I was fascinated by this, right? The thing fascinated me. I suppose it was inevitable. Is that the word they use? Began to understand was the word. I learned more and more words. Awesome. So this man, for some reason, went to prison. And his autobiography starts off very... I haven't read it all, just the beginning. But his autobiography starts off with Ku Klux Klan members, white supremacists, coming to his family's house and attacking his father. Copied. How is it the key word? It's a key idea, so this was a verb, right? But in each of these, there's like an action that happens, right? We can see a progression. Let's read it, and let's come back to that idea, okay? So I'll read it to you guys. Follow along. The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm X was one of the leaders of the African American community in the 1960s. It had really begun back in Charleston prison, when Bimby first made me envy his great knowledge. Bimby had always taken charge of any conversation he was in, and I had tried to copy him. But every book I picked up had very few sentences which didn't contain words that might as well have been in Chinese. When I just skipped those words, of course, I really ended up with little idea of what the book said. So I'd come to the Norfolk prison colony, still going through only book reading motions. Pretty soon, I would have quit even these motions unless I had received the motivation I did. Okay, so this Bimby guy, taking charge, conversations. I don't know who the character is. They don't introduce him here. They've introduced them before, right? He says that these words, if you don't understand them, they might as well be in Chinese, right? A completely different language. And so he went through the motions of it. He didn't actually learn. He wasn't actually reading. He was just like pretending to read, right? Going through the motions, only book reading motions, like turn a page every minute, okay? That you're pretending to read. I've seen students do that. That's fine. Going through the motions of learning, okay? Pretty soon I would have quit even these motions unless I had received the motivation I did. I saw that the best thing I could do was get hold of a dictionary, to study, to learn some words. I spent 2 days just turning the pages of the dictionary. I never realized so many words existed. I didn't even know which words I needed to learn. Finally, just to start some kind of action, I began copying. So there's this connection, right? there's this idea. It's not a concluding sentence, but that last sentence. No, this is pretty much like a really good conclusion. Finally, just to start some kind of action, I began copying. And so in this last sentence, we know what's going to happen in the next one, right? This is why these concluding sentences don't just usually in an essay just don't end, okay? In my slow and terrible handwriting, I copied into my notebooks everything printed on that page, down to the punctuation mark. And so I would say this is the key word because there's not many words in this. Well, it's one sentence, right? But this is the main idea of this. And I think why it's short is like when you watch a movie, I wouldn't in the movie show somebody copying the words for 10 hours, you know. This is when you have the montage, right? Those cut scenes where everything goes fast. You see him maybe copying, stretching, copying something. The speed up time, right? That's a montage. Like, you know, the most classic montage of all time is from Rocky. What is the Rocky montage? Let me show you what a montage is before we move on. The training montage, right? So this is not happening in real time. They have to break up like, I don't know, a couple months of training by making a montage, right? It's little cut scenes of all the actions. One scene, two scenes, running through the fires. Has anybody done this? How I feel like in Turkey sometimes. 3. Now he's in the park, right? I'm not gonna show this whole thing. It's a classic montage though. Now he's doing the speed bags. I only have 5 fingers. So. Doing that. Okay, and there's, you know, another 2 minutes of that, right? So that's what a montage is. It makes things go quicker, right? And in reading, when I'm writing a book, there is no tomorrow. What about tomorrow? Is this what the song is called? What are you saying? So that's why I think this thing here is interesting, right? It's very short. Got it. It's very short, even though it probably, how long did it take, you know, copying everything printed on that page? It probably took them hours, right? But sometimes we show how long something is by making it so short that it's almost like, and then he woke up, you know? Like, you know, there was like 8 hours when he was sleeping, if he was a good sleeper. But I'm not. So that now transitions, right? We have this idea, and what is he doing in this? He's just copying. Okay, so I would definitely say, good job, you made it. Copied. That's the word. I believe it took me a whole day. There's no tomorrow, just today. Then aloud, I read back to myself everything I'd written in the notebook over and over, aloud to myself. I read my own handwriting. Let me ask you guys, any of you have the motivation to do something like this? In a tough situation, when you have nothing, when you're hopeless and, you know, schools are shut down. Anybody? I think I've done this in my past, not the writing thing. It doesn't have to be about writing or handwriting. It could be about learning music or learning the guitar or learning your favorite software program. I would say it's not a video game thing, though, or watching a movie. I'm talking about creating. Okay? I woke up the next morning thinking about those words, very proud to realize that not only had I written so much at one time, but I'd written words that I had never knew were in the world. Moreover, with a little effort, I could also remember what many of these words meant. I reviewed the words whose meanings I didn't remember. Okay. He just taught you how to learn. Okay, is by doing. First by reading, by writing, copying, then reading over and over out loud. Okay, until those words stuck into his brain so that he could start to remember with little effort what the words' meanings were. I reviewed those words whose meanings I didn't remember. This is how you do vocabulary learning, right? Something I need to do. I was so fascinated that I went on. I copied the dictionary's next page, and the same experience came when I studied that. With every succeeding page, I also learned of people, places, and events from history. Actually, the dictionary is like a small encyclopedia. It is. Encyclopedia is like kind of, I don't know, I guess it'd be like Wikipedia, except in a book form. Okay, but nothing changes except every year they come out with a new one. They stopped making these. And then they started making like DVD versions that you put in your computer. You can have a dictionary, and they had sounds and videos, and it was kind of cool for a second. And then the internet got better, and then all of those things went away. Finally, the dictionary's A section had filled a whole notebook, and I went on to the B's. Wow. He did every A, okay? I'm sure not every one of them. Between what I wrote in my notebook and writing letters during the rest of my time in prison, I would guess I wrote 1,000,000 words. Okay, so he definitely spent those 10,000 hours to become a master. And what did he become a master of? I mean, in another life, he would become a scribe, somebody who copies books, for a living. Copies one book handwritten into another book to use, at the church or wherever. Usually it was the Bible or other like Latin textbooks, history books. That's what he would have done. Wow, 10,000 hours probably. Maybe more. I suppose it was inevitable that I learned more and more words. I could for the first time pick up a book and read and now begin to understand what the book was saying. Anyone who has read a great deal can imagine the new world that opened. Let me tell you something. From then until I left prison, in every free moment I had, if I was not reading in the library, I was reading on my bed. There was nothing you could have done to take me away from my books. Between my correspondences, that's his letters, my visitors, and my reading of books, months passed without my even thinking about being imprisoned. In fact, up to then, I never had been so truly free in my life. Wow. It's pretty cool. Think about that for a moment. Hold on. Let me read this last paragraph again. This little conclusion, if you may, of what he's talking about. It's only a page long, too, right? It's not the full biography, autobiography. I suppose it was inevitable that I learned more and more words. I could, for the first time, pick up a book and read, and now begin to understand what the book was saying. Anyone who has read a great deal can imagine the new world that opened. Let me tell you something. From then until I left prison, in every free moment I had, if I was not reading in the library, I was reading on my bed. There was nothing you could have done to take me away from my books. Between my correspondences, my visitors, and my reading of books, months passed without my even thinking about being in prison. In fact, up to then, I had never been so free, truly. I'd been so truly free in my life. You can escape your prisons, with some imagination. What I love about books, and what I still remember about the good books, the good fiction, is I can remember what the characters look like in my head, the characters I drew. So I read The Name of the Wind, and I can close my eyes and see the university, the city, the town, what he looks like. I didn't read The Witcher, but the problem with books where there's like a movie or a character, though, is you can't do this anymore, When you read that book, you're going to see, what's his name? Henry Cavill, whatever his name is. But books that before they were ever made into movies, if there was nothing on the title, it was you. You could imagine what colors they were wearing. I missed that. I didn't read The Witcher. What about The Witcher? And remember, Con, when you quote something, use quotation marks. Otherwise, I think you're the one that says it. Okay, so practice those punctuations even in the chat box. Because I think that you said it. That's why I was confused. No, you don't, not for that one. I'm saying for the there is no tomorrow. That's when I'll know that you're like, oh, that's a quote. Cool. No, it's not. Don't be sorry. But yeah, sometimes people do put that on to, because titles of books are hard, right? Sometimes they look like sentences because they are sentences, everything and all at once, right? So we do put quotation marks on books names, movie names, or we do italicize. We have to show something that it's different than the text. And usually, if it's a simple text, then we'll just put quotation marks. But yeah, you're right. You should do that with The Witcher as well. What about The Witcher? You're welcome. Thank you for learning. Okay. I didn't read The Witcher. Is it good? Is it better than The Name of the Wind? I don't know. I'm waiting for the third book, The Name of the Wind. Oh my god, what an amazing book. What an amazing writer, Mr. Roth. Read that book. That'll blow your mind. All right, let's just do one more page and then I'll stop, okay? No, I like this. Let's go. That's it. Let's just do it all. Okay, when Malcolm X working to complete the sentences that reflect the steps Malcolm X went through in teaching himself to read. Okay, we're talking about reading. Yes, The Name of the Wind is a novel. And read it before it becomes a TV show, because I think they're gonna ad block. Patrick Rothfuss. And you get cool vibes whenever you say this name to somebody who read it. They're just like, "Oh my god, you read that book?" It's like a big insiders thing. The second book, The Wise Man's Fear, also just as good. But I don't know what's wrong with him. It's like a George R. Martin phenomenon where they can't finish their books. I get it. There's a lot of pressure now, you know. I understand. But still, I think The Name of the Wind will become a TV series. So please read it now. The King Killer Chronicle. Please don't ever become. Not in my lifetime. I won't be around for too long, don't worry. Okay, went to jail. What did he do? Dang it, I don't know. The first thing he did was, he pretended to read. Let me use the text. The first thing he did was got a hold of a dictionary, no? And read it first in his own handwriting. He copied it. See, okay, there's some help. See, so this is like what I'm trying to help you do with that timeline of the story, of the love story. You know, they give you some hints. In his own writings, he copied for an entire day. Then after a night's sleep, he would read it over and over, reread it, read it over and over, out loud, aloud. He learned not only words, but what? People and places. That's not a good sentence. People and places. Reading became, I don't know, easy, right? What did he actually say? fun, easy. I don't know. Let me tell you something. Books, guys. And anytime you meet somebody, okay, if you're a reader, guys, and you meet somebody, okay, like a person, and they're not a reader, just say goodbye. Write that into the story for me, guys. If you like have a hobby and your person it's just like hates your hobby, just get out. But if you enjoy education, reading, writing, these things, and you meet somebody who does not, I'm gonna tell you, it's probably not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Reading became, I don't know, easy and something he did every day. Okay, I gotta go fast so we can finish in like 15 minutes. Yes, okay. Became his life and his way of becoming free. Okay, well. Decided to improve his reading skills. Went to jail. He pretended to read. And then decided to improve his reading skills. I don't know. Come on, you guys can help me. Get a dictionary, look at all the words. Read it, okay? Copied for an entire, everything in his notebook, okay? Copied. He copied. Copied what? The A's, the words, into his notebook. Okay. He would go over the words he had learned the day before. Go over something, okay? Is to review something. Let's go over the class. Let's go over the assignment. Let's go over blah, blah, blah. Let's go over the hill. That's different, okay? And then over the hill also means you're getting old. But going over like an idea, a thought, something. Right? Same thing. He read the book over. He read it over and over aloud. But people, places, historical events, places. I forgot historical events. I'm sorry. Who cares? Who cares, Bob? Nobody does. Okay. And something, blah, blah, blah. Why is there that? Da, 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 da. Okay. So I had come to Norfolk Folk Prison Colony, still going through only book reading motions. He had limited reading skills. He could read the words and understood what he was reading. No. So people who are illiterate, okay, you might never know. Okay, I've heard stories of people who've said about themselves that they were illiterate, but they get really good at pretending like they could read. Okay, and maybe there's like one word that they recognize, and so they can actually explain it still. Okay, it's not reading, obviously, but people, because illiteracy is considered something terrible, right? I don't know. Sometimes it's just by accident. You by bad luck. You have bad parents, or you were sick for a long time and just never learned how to read. I don't know. I don't shame people. Anybody can learn how to read. Okay, and anybody who can read now can improve their reading and understanding. Okay, I still can do this. I mean, I still have a long ways to go before I become some master reader of like complicated text and novels, But it's practice. Everything is practice. It's like whether you enjoy that practice or not. In my slow and terrible handwriting, I copied into my notebook everything printed on that page, down to the punctuation marks. He copied everything but the punctuation marks. Down to. What does down to mean? I did everything down to like scrubbing the floor with the toothbrush. He also copied the punctuation marks. Okay, down to. So everything. So if you're going down a list, he went all the way down to the end of it, which is the punctuation marks, which you guys need to learn how to do still. And the best way to learn punctuations is by reading. Notice that there's no space, right? And there's a space there. Amazing. I know you guys, I'm just talking for our internet audience out there, but you guys are okay. With every succeeding page, I also learned of people and places and events from history. Actually, the dictionary is like a small encyclopedia. If you don't know what encyclopedia is, look it up. Let's do it together. Encyclop. Dang it. I don't know how to spell that. Like a cyclops. Encyclopedia is one eye. It has a one eye monster. What does it mean? All around education. Wow. Encyclop. Oh, I get it. I'm reading it like pedia is the word. Encyclios. Unculicos. I don't know. I'm just making it up. By reading the dictionary, he learned a lot more than just words. Reading the dictionary helped him read the encyclopedia. No, this one. So there's, if you ever look in an encyclopedia or a dictionary, there's like pictures sometimes, There's like a little animal picture, black and white. Beautiful. Makes it like a children's book. No, just kidding. Adult books should have pictures in it. I don't know why they don't. There was nothing you could have done to take me away from my books. Between my correspondence, that's letters, letter writing, my visitors and my reading of books, months passed without even thinking about being in prison. In fact, up to then, I had never been so truly free in my life. According to the author, that's a great way to introduce a quotation, right? Reading is part of the pathway to freedom. According to the author, freedom is having time to read. Okay, the pathway is like, the route or the goal, whatever. Did he have to read to get out of prison? No, that's not what he means, right? Freedom is having time to read. That's what I'm going to say. And do you guys have time to read? Do you guys have a book list? I mean, I have 30, 40, 50 books that I have to read that's on my list. A, B, A, O. Yeah. Okay. That's a weird one. So when I think about this pathway, I was thinking of the word in order to get out of prison, he had to read books. I would say reading leads to a person's personal freedom, right? That's what I would try to mean through this. I read it wrong, but you would probably too. I do think freedom is having time to read, though. That's probably why. But yeah, have a list of books. I mean, you hear somebody talking about a book, you hear me talking about a book, write it down, make a list, put it on your little journal, okay? I'm going to read this many books. When I was in, 4th grade, I won the Reading Around the World competition. I think I read 40 books, and they were not short books. I was 10 years old. I was reading 200, 300-page fantasy novels at that time. And I don't read as much anymore. It wasn't a phase. I think I learned a lot from reading those books. It made me more imaginative. It made me a better writer and reader. I think it's what made me really interested in learning, especially about the world, was all the books that I read, because we didn't have much, We had a library that was free, and the library had this beautiful park, so that me and my brother, my mom would just drop us off at the library, this huge, beautiful library in Huntington Beach, California. And we would go, we would find our books, we would read, we would play some old school computer games, and then we would go out of the park, into the park, and then pretend like we were knights and wizards and fighting dragons that were made of trees. And it was a beautiful memory, And it was interesting that because we were poor and because the times were okay, my mom could just drop us off at the library. The library was our daycare center on the weekends. So my mom and my sister could go shopping for groceries and everything else. Me and my brother were just left at the park and the library to ourselves. You can't do that anymore. I know, it's so illegal now. But it was a wonderful time, and we survived. None of us died. Duh. And if we did, well, it wasn't the library's fault. It wasn't my mom's fault. Oh, my mom left us at the library. We died. I wouldn't blame my mom. I would thank her at the end of the day. My ghost would say, "Thank you for the books, Mama." It's very, I yeah. It's interesting. It's like being poor gave me the opportunity to read more because it was free. Because we had libraries. I don't know. Are there city libraries where you went to school, where you grew up? Could you go into a library and study there? Could you go into a library with your family and check out a book and sit down and read a book? Okay. And yeah, and now they're trying to get rid of books in libraries. And, it's interesting because they always say if they made libraries today in America, it would never happen. It would be called socialist, giving people free education. How dare you? We're going to build a library for people that don't have money to buy books? Why would we do that? Take charge of. What is this? This is like stupid and easy. I'm insulted for you guys. This is insulting. Take control of. Take charge of. Do you know Hidetaka Miyazaki? Is he the Miyazaki? Wait, he's the anime guy, right? I don't know his first name, but I know Miyazaki. The Miyazaki movies. Miyazaki. Oh, no. Now we're talking about games, huh? Okay. Elden Ring. I've not played it. I've heard nice things about it. No comma. Game developer. What's his big thing? What other games did he make? Did he make all the Dark Souls? Armored Core. Demon Soul. That's the one I was thinking about. And Dark Souls. Yeah. I mean, yeah, so, what did I do? I went on Friday to Yakakoi, a little bit outside, a little village outside of Bornova. And, I was having a meeting and I was talking to my friend's husband about environment and chemicals and all sorts of things. But, I'm an English teacher. But that's not what I teach, I still love reading. I mean, I don't read novels as much as I read like long articles. What do I read long articles on? Like The Atlantic. Okay. They're like essays, basically. Somebody wrote like, this, it takes 30 something minutes to read one of these essays. But I love reading these things that are given to me on my feed. I have like a reading feed that I get from Pocket and other things. Pocket. New York Times also, there's like, I get a reading list from like my websites and I go through some of them and I save them on my computer. I use this thing called Raindrop to like save a link so I can read it later. I categorize them into like science and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so I'm always reading because that's what I do. Because I love to read. And so, yeah, I can like save something. I wish you could open app. Let's open this app. And here, you can see all like the bookmarks I've ever made. I categorize them. I haven't read all these. Some of them I have. Things about Turkey as well. No, that's for help. Self-help stuff, pedagogy, teaching, right? Relationships, Limerence versus love. That's interesting. Things I need to download. Um, but, mainly reading, like science and technology is probably the most. And so what it does, I save these links and I go read them, and you can read them in this website, which makes all the advertisement go away. Great. I have it for my smartphone as well. It's called raindrop.com. And there's lots of other things like that. Read it later, or yeah, raindrop.io, guys. Check it out. Oops, can't see that. Talking about video games. But yeah, these are the readings. So I find that people who read just have a lot more ideas they can talk about. I can go to a party and talk to somebody about something. Okay, there's like not many people, and I can go and talk about boxing. I can talk about most sports. I can't talk about football or basketball anymore. But if you're talking about running or training or just exercise, yes, I can talk to you about that. If you want to talk about politics, oh, well, I'm there. Environment. Oh my God, I can go on and on. Education. I found art, music. Not so much movies because I need to watch more the greats. But yeah, the more you read, the more you can talk to people, the more you can make connections, and the more that you can like have a moment to actually get to know somebody. I mean, I read the Bible, not all of it. I read parts of it, and then now I can talk to people about their religion, Maybe, and one day I will read parts of the Quran to be able to discuss with people, so it opens my doors, right, to get to know people, to understand people, to like learn from them, and then to be also able to teach them, because nobody will ever want to learn anything from you unless you know something about them, right? Which means like your hobbies or your skills, if somebody understands parts of you, it kind of gets that little crack open, opens a little. And the more you share, even if about your personal family history or something, the more you invite somebody in, because it builds trust, It's this idea, like that's what religion was created for, to like build trust. If you wore the something and it looked like something else, then oh, that person believes in what I believe, right? This is all from Sapien, Yuval Harari. We created these symbols so that people would recognize us, even if we look different, right? If I was an African man and you were an Asian Chinese man, but we all had that same symbol, crescent, then I would trust you and I would say, okay, So same idea. If you talk to somebody and we don't wear symbols as much, some of us do. I mean, our clothes symbolize things, right? You see someone wearing all black, you might think they're goth. You might be able to have a connection with them, But for the rest of the people that don't look like you or dress like you, well, the only thing that's going to let you in is an idea, right? A good idea that you're knowledgeable about, that you can discuss. Maybe you're not an expert, You don't have to be an expert in any of these things. All you need is just, it takes like 10,000 hours to master something, they say, but it takes 8 hours to learn something. Okay. And that means learning is just like that you have the basic knowledge of something, So you can learn the guitar in 8 hours, they say, if you practice like well. But you're not going to be able to like play at a concert, but you're going to be able to play a song or two, You're going to be able to like pull out a C chord and go, maybe you'll practice and be able to do it. Like that's the ability to play a guitar, right? Just like reading, like everybody thinks they can read, but it takes practice to become a master reader where, that's your job. You become a book editor, like a person that checks the books and reads it and says, oh, this could be different. Oh my God, this was great. Like, not everybody gets to do that job, even though, let's say, I can read a book. Nobody's going to give me the job to read somebody's new novel and give criticism and feedback. That's not what I've been trained to do, So I have the ability to read, But am I a master reader? No. Is that my goal? No. My goal is to be able to do as many things as I possibly can. Sorry, so much. Skip something. Skip something. I don't know. Let's ignore, I guess. Skip something. All right, it's almost time. Let's get out of it. Go through the motions. Do something mechanically. Okay? You can go through the motions of life, guys. Okay? It's a sad way to live. Don't do it. It's a sad way to live. Okay? Don't do it like that. Don't go through the motions of life. Like, open your eyes, enjoy every moment of it, feel every heartbreak of it, get hold of to get a hold of. You really got a hold of me to find. Sorry. Down to. All the way down to, including. Okay. But in that word, come on, there's so many meanings. Like, you can get down to it. Let's get down to it. Let's get into it. Let's get down to it. Fascinated. To be passionately interested. Anybody fascinated in anything new? You guys fascinated in people? Is it like what Pedro Pascal is like? Everybody was fascinated by him, his life, his hot dad. I think that's a good move to go from the slobby dad, the dad bod to like cool dad vibes. I don't know if he's a dad. I don't even think he's married. Inevitable, impossible to avoid. I think I got it. All right. Let's go through this. People who have learned to take charge, take control of their lives reveal the very best of human spirit. Before he was rescued by the Metropolitan Regional Career and Technical Center, otherwise known as the Met. What? 10th grade, Caesar, had only attended school in a mechanical way. He'd gone through the motions. Right? Attended school in a mechanical way. Do any of you out there in TV land, do you go through this education process in a mechanical way, through the motions? Wake up, open your book. There was a student. Anytime I see a student come into class with nothing in his hand, I say, "Where's your notebook?" He said, "I don't need one." "Where's your pencil?" "I don't need one." I don't know. I don't know if I should be offended when that happens. He says, "No, I don't need it. I can learn without these things." And I don't know if that's true, because knowledge, if you could remember everything the moment that I spoke, then yeah, you don't need school. You don't. Then why? Then why are you in a prep program? That's what my question would be. If you could learn everything by watching it once, like you had a photographic memory, then yes, you don't need a notebook. You don't need a pencil. You don't need to write your ideas down. You don't need to like create, because I guess maybe you've created all the ideas in the universe. They're stored in your head. And I'm just exaggerating this, but whenever I see a student walk into a classroom with nothing in their hand, even when I see a teacher do that, there's a problem. Okay, and to me, there's a lack of investment. Okay, in that process of learning, because if it was that easy to walk into a classroom and memorize everything from what your teacher said and get everything that you need and be able to maybe 14 weeks later go to the test and be like, "Yep, I remember what Mr. Bob said in that first class," because I don't need a notebook. I don't need a pencil. Oh, man. It says something about hubris, like your ego, your overconfidence, your cockiness. I don't know. But some people do that, right? Between hanging out on street corners with fellow gang members, getting into trouble with the police, and visiting his father and brother in jail, he never did his homework and had very limited reading and writing skills as a result. Dropping out of school was surely going to be the impossible to avoid. We just learned this. Cool. This is why we did the other one. Inevitable consequence of this lifestyle. Right. And I was a teenager. I was a teenage boy. Like carrying like a backpack was considered nerdy. The bigger the backpack, the nerdier you were. So we just carried our notebooks because we had to have notebooks to go to school. It was like a requirement. They would say, "Where's your blah blah blah?" So I just carried this little notebook, and had a pencil in my ear. That was the show that I was like cool, didn't care. I get that, but I also think it's fake, it's a fake thing people do to look cool, to show that they don't care, because uncaringness, not being passionate about things is like the cool thing to do. Like, yeah, I don't need school, man. I don't need anybody. I don't need my family. Stuff like that. I don't need an education. I don't need friends, man. I don't need food. However, at the Met, César found the inspiration. Motivation. I think inspiration is different from motivation, okay? I feel like inspiration comes from outside, okay? And I feel like motivation, something happens and then inside something pops up, okay? That's how I feel the word is, And I have a feeling always about words, because these words, just like for Malcolm X, like they become like part of your life when you hear them so many times. You can close your eyes and see the word motivation. You can close your eyes, think of the word motivation, and think of the person who motivated you in your life. Okay? The words start to take on meaning the more you hear them, and the more you use them, and the more that you live and experience your life. I would love for you guys to write down your favorite English word and why, and then connect it, kind of like that vocabulary mind maps that we used to do, but nobody really finished all of them. So found the motivation to turn his life around to become an exceptional student. The Met was a unique public high school in Providence, Rhode Island, where students received a lot of personal attention while designing their own programs according to their interests and needs. Nice education system. Your interests and your needs, okay? That's how school should be. It should be based on those things. Caesar's teachers taught him to become passionately interested, fascinated, I guess. Isn't that the word? With the learning experience by giving him interesting books to read. Eventually, Caesar's old habit of not reading. What does not reading mean? Going through the motions? Skipping. Well, I mean, when I'm reading, I skip words, okay? Because you don't need to read them all. It's true. But if you skip the words that you don't know because you don't know them, well, that's a problem. And when you're reading and you have to skip a word, well, don't skip it. Make a little mark, do whatever you have to do. Come back to it, though, okay? But don't stop reading. I don't recommend, read the entire paragraph if you don't know the word, okay? Try to figure out the meaning through the context. You might be able to figure it out. And everything might make sense still. But if you're kind of confused, then go back, find that word, okay? Write it down, though. Write it down on the ground. Habit of skipping the words that he didn't know disappeared as he started to read every word on the page. Down to, so this is an idiomatic term, right? We're not putting it down on the ground. We're not down to clown. Idioms, right? This direction plus this particle down to the last footnote. The footnotes are those words at the bottom, okay? If you read this book and there's something down here, there's like a number 1, blah, blah, blah. That's what we call the footnote, right? Because it's at the foot of the page. And it's a note. Wow. Compound nouns. This was especially true when he picked up the Autobiography of Malcolm X. And maybe I should pick up the autobiography. Why don't we read it? I'll find a copy. Again, digital. X, Malcolm X became Caesar's role model. With the Mets' help and the inspiration of Malcolm X finding freedom through education, Caesar was able to find himself as a person and chart his destiny. Okay? This former gang member, whose childhood friends would most likely be jealous, envy. Right? Envy is different from jealousy. Okay? Envy is when you envy is when you don't have something and somebody has it and you want it. Jealousy is when you have that thing, that person, and they do something that makes you like envious or like upset. That's my definition. Likely envy is good fortunes, became a poet and went to a small private college on a full tuition. Awesome blossom. I think we should read Malcolm X's book. I'm going to read it. Read the dictionary entry for the phrasal verb pick up. Okay, lots of pickups. Pickup artist. The dictionary entry gives some of the words many meanings, then read each sentence, decide which meaning is being used, write the number. Sorry, I didn't reveal this. And then we'll finish with this, okay? Sorry. These all mean pick up. Okay, after Caesar learned the benefit of pursuing an education, his life picked up in every way. This is 2, get better to improve one's business social life. Number 1 is not an idiom, it's the literal meaning, pick up, to take something from a table, pick up off the ground from the something. Pick up means to learn something without much effort or without being taught in a class. Okay, he started playing guitar and he picked it up quickly. Okay, start again, to begin something, a conversation, a meeting, a life. Okay, starting from the point where it stopped earlier. So his life picked up where it began. Blah blah blah. Police, to find someone to take him or her to the police station for questioning. The police picked them up. Pick them off the street, pick them up. The other thing would be pick up is like to flirt with somebody, right? I picked her up. A pickup artist is somebody who like goes and flirts with people and gets their phone numbers. I don't know. You guys know. As a reading skill improved, he could easily understand most of the books he picked up. Okay. This one is what? Would be 1. He's actually physically picking up the book. Okay, you could be thinking about 2, 3, but he easily could understand. He could easily pick up most of the books he picked up. Okay, if we want to use multiple pickups, the pickup artist, he could easily pick up most of what he was reading from the books he picked up off the ground when he was picked up by the police. This dramatic change in his life gave him confidence in himself and made him realize that he could readily pick up whatever new ideas were presented to him. This is the one about learning. Awesome blossom. His friends, however, continued to engage in criminal activities and were constantly picked up by the police. This one's the police one, to find someone to take him in, right? I would say arrested is like, the better word if they went to jail. Pick up means to just be interviewed. After being released from prison, many of the friends just picked up where they had left off and continued their old life. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off in the book. That's what I would say. Okay, so next on Thursday, we're going to pick up from where we left off in Ready to Write 3, talking about problem and solutions. Okay, so start again. And bam, we're done. Extra 10 minutes. I don't know. I like to finish all my classes. I'm the opposite of your other, not yours, but other teachers who finish early. Sorry, I don't care. Sorry, not sorry. Any questions? And that's it. I recommend you guys look at these 2 authors. You're welcome. John Cazale and Malcolm X. And we're talking about education. We're talking about, my ultimate goal in life is education for all. Not where you're from, what you look like, what you smell like, what you eat for breakfast, is that like if somebody walks into my classroom, I'm going to teach them. If somebody complains that I'm teaching that person, I will quit that job. Okay. This is my lifelong mission. I don't know if you guys are aware, but after I stopped teaching, my mission is to help people who think they're helpless, who society looks at them as helpless, people who go to prison, who have a different skin color, who grew up in a different way. You know, we all get second chances, okay? But we have to be given those chances, right? We can't take our second chances. When you mess up, you mess up sometimes. That's the consequence. But we can be given second chances by people around us, by society, by our families, by our friends, whatever, but mainly by society, by our teachers, our educators. Okay? So it's up to you, really. If you're going to give a second chance to somebody, you're the one giving it. It's not that the person deserves it. Okay? But education, in my opinion, is something everybody deserves. So I hope you learned something. Sorry about the moodiness in the beginning. It's been a rough week and a rough semester and a rough year and a rough couple years. And I hope the best for all of you. And I hope that there comes hope and hopefulness and resilience. Okay? And this idea of compartmentalizing, not just going through the motions, not putting everything away, but dealing with things as it comes, facing things, but also getting back to this normalness that should always be part of our lives, which is learning, reading, educating, and all of that fun stuff. So thank you, and I am out. You're welcome. You're welcome. Goodbye. Check all the readings. And there was no assignment this week, so let's take a break. Read your book, read it again, read another book, do your task B. If you have any questions about that, write it in our Padlet. I'll just post this. Whenever I say goodbye, it takes me like 20 minutes to say goodbye. Okay, goodbye, everyone.